to the government's, all these stimulus and things like that. But I understand it if we're trying to stimulate the economy and things like that. I can be convinced, and I'm just not a big person on it. But hey, I understand helping people, and there's been a lot of people out of work and all of these things. So I get that. I'm not trying to argue that point. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it really bothered me when we were sending billions of dollars. I think it was up to 400 to 500 billions of dollars to when we're trying to stimulate our economy. We're sending this around the world, billions of dollars, $500 billion around the world, but we give the American people $600. That really bothers me. Really bothers me. That we can say all of these things and, we're going to stimulate our economy and give the people, okay, here you go. Here's a little bit of something here. And we're not going to help or stand with our people. Here's $600. Yeah. You hadn't worked in 6 months. Here it is. And I know that we have unemployment and we helped in those things as well, but we're talking about the everyday person. Maybe they have been employed and things are hard for them. Can't afford daycare, all of these things. We have to educate ourselves in what is going on in the system, and we have to figure out what is it? Is it oppressing us? Is it setting us free? Okay, I think I hit on that one enough. Number 3, stand up and speak out. I think this is very important as well. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he falls. If you think you're standing, if you think you're right, if you think you know it all, but don't realize that maybe the problem is you. That's another thing. Maybe our silence is a problem, especially with any injustice. I do think also you don't help the particular side that you're trying to promulgate or trying to push. You don't help that side if you don't educate yourself. If you're just saying all kinds of stuff, we need to defund the police because they have hurt black folk, and you don't really educate yourself into understanding what is going on. Maybe defunding isn't the case. Maybe educating, maybe spending more money to train and to equip people and officers. Maybe that's the idea. Because if you take out cops out of African-American communities, who is going to hurt? It's going to hurt African-Americans. I saw a post once that was like, you privileged people ought to be speaking right now and not being silent. And it's like, no, you privileged people ought to be educating yourself right now before you speak. Know what you're talking about. Know what you're talking about and stand for the truth. Speak the truth. I am not just going to agree with anybody just based upon something that I don't know anything about. My mom's real funny. I love her. She's one of the most faithful listeners. Also, happy birthday, Levi Reese. It's his birthday. He's one of our faithful listeners, and my mother as well. And my mother called me the other day. And years ago, I listened to a podcast about Sam Cooke, and I was like, oh, my goodness, why didn't anybody ever tell me anything about Sam Cooke? Well, my mom's been in radio for 30 years. And I said, why haven't you told me anything about Sam Cooke? And we started talking, and then we didn't talk very much that day, but she called me back, and she had just watched another documentary, and she was real passionate about Sam Cooke. And I kept saying, well, I don't know. I've heard this side. I don't know. What is this? I mean, she was passionate. And I said to her, I said, I don't know. Listen, and she could possibly 1,000% be right, but I'm not going to co-sign on something that I don't know anything about. I remember talking to her once after the election, and I had made a point, and I said, man, there's something going on. And she was like, well, you don't need to be saying what everybody else is saying. You need to. And I said, hold on. I didn't say anything specific. I just said, I think there might be something going on here. I don't know if there is or not, and there possibly could not be something going on. I hope that comes out. But I'm not just going to say something that people say just because other people are saying it without any factual evidence, without any research myself. So if you're going to stand up and speak out, you have to do your own research and then speak out. If you see an injustice, no matter who commits it, speak out. Whether it's the right or the left, or it's the pastor or whoever it is, you speak out. And I'm not even saying in the sense of humiliating another person. You just go to them and say, hey, what's going on here? That's number 3. Number 4, own it and take responsibility for your part, nothing else. I'm seeing this. I mean, I did a speech in our town. We did an open prayer meeting outdoors, and right after the George Floyd incident, they asked me to speak, and I thought it was great. And somebody walked up to me right afterwards, like, I'm just so sorry for all those terrible white people. I'm so sorry for what we did. I'm thinking, you didn't do anything to me. To me, it felt more like pandering. I mean, I felt like, man, you must not think I'm very smart. And this person didn't do this on purpose. But I'm thinking, wow, I'm just sitting here talking to you, and I don't feel the need for you to come up and apologize to me about something that I don't even know if you're really sincere about. If you want to talk about it, if you want to sit down and talk about how I feel and where I am today, that's great. We can have a conversation about it. But don't pander to me just because it makes you feel better. Take your responsibility. I believe this. Like, what is my responsibility in all of this? I remember right after the Parkland shooting, I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, man, I'm not in Parkland. I don't have any part of that. That's in Florida. I'm not even around that. But I thought, man, what is my responsibility in all of this? How can I make things better and not worse? I was reading Matthew chapter 16 when it talks about Jesus told his disciples, if you want to come after me, you must deny yourself, take up his cross and follow me. I remember somebody wrote that on Facebook. They just kind of said, what does it mean to bear your cross and to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? And I remember that my answer, and I usually don't respond, but man, I just felt it in my heart. And to me, it means to shoulder your load. Take responsibility, embrace life difficulties and its tragedies while moving forward up the mountain, following Christ, finding joy in the midst of difficulties, negativity, mocking, slander, even violence. And within the journey, learn to trust God the Father, to find God's strength, to encounter his perfect love, which removes fear. So my question is, what is my part in all of this? What is my part in unifying the country? It could be unifying my family. It could be unifying my church or being a part of that. It could be, we think something so big. It doesn't have to be. My part could be just raising up the young men around me in the particular town that I live in so that there won't be any Parklands near me. Shouldering my load, taking responsibility, standing up. Number 5, being precise in your conversation. Being precise. Factual, knowing the truth, standing with the truth, not embellishing, not saying something that happened and it didn't happen, not going off talking about what you don't know. Being precise in your conversation. Also, asking, what's the goal in this? Being a preacher, oftentimes, especially if you put something online, people want to argue with you oftentimes on that. And I have to ask myself, like, if I engage in this conversation, what is the goal? Is the goal really glorifying Jesus? Or is the goal winning an argument? Because the goal is winning an argument, then where's the fruit? Okay, number 6. Listen. You can say, I'm listening. I think this is the problem. Like, if you watch what happened on the Capitol on the 6th, there was an attack that scared both sides. Instead of just saying, hey, what was your fear? What is these things? How is it? It should bring us together to say, hey, man, I'm on the right. I'm on the left. I'm conservative. I'm whatever. I don't agree with that. What do you think about that? Every once in a while, I call some friends of mine that are more on the left than me, left leaning. And I just say, hey, I just have a question to ask you. What do you think about this? I'm trying to grasp what I feel or what I believe. Number 7, speak the truth, do not embellish. That's another point that we talked about, being precise in your conversation. Speak the truth. not embellish. And number 8, the first episode that we ever did of Grace Talks, resist tribalism. Resist tribalism. Resist tribalism. Very difficult thing to do because we all like our tribes. When I come back, I'm gonna dive into that one a little bit, and then hopefully we'll talk about some other things. But I do want to talk about the resisting of tribalism. Don't be tribal, and we've seen this. I'm gonna defend Trump. I'm gonna defend AOC because they own my team. No, we have to align ourselves with the truth, with God's truth. This is Grace Talk. Grace Talks. I did want to, and I think I'm going to have time, but I do want to talk about resisting tribalism. But also want to talk about some of my thoughts on Black History Month. So resisting tribalism, this is really important. I think this is so important in the position that Christians need to have. When Joshua got to Jericho's walls, I want to read this. This is Joshua chapter 5, 13 through 15. And now it came about when Joshua was by Jericho. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there was a man standing opposite of him with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" And he said, "No, or neither. Rather, I indeed come as a captain of the host of the Lord." And Joshua fell to his feet and bowed down and said to him, "What has my Lord to do with his servant?" And the captain, and he said, the captain of the Lord's host said to Joshua, "Remove your sandals on your feet, and place for the place that you are is holy." So this is the idea here. Joshua says to this man with a sword drawn, saying to him, "Are you for me or are you for my enemy? Which side are you on?" It's like, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Are you conservative? Are you liberal? And we always try to put God on the side and say, this is what God would do. This is what is immoral, and this is what not immoral. And I love how the captain of the host responds. He says, "Neither. As the captain of the host I come." Basically, I'm on my own side. I'm not on your side. I'm not on this side. God is on his side. And by instead of saying, "God, we want you, you're on the Republican side, that's the good." And I have this conversation with people when they say, "Well, the Democrats are evil and the Republicans are good and this or that." It's like, no, God is good and the enemy is evil. And we need to navigate which side or we don't need to demonize other people, because demonizing other people is not going to bring forth unity. And we need to ask ourselves, is that really the goal? But being tribal is not being helpful. We need to be on the Lord's side. Tribes force us to pick a side. Tribes want us to join ourselves to a side and say, this is what I believe and what I don't believe, and when you pick a side, you have to demonize the people that are not on the other side. You have to say, I'm with AOC or I'm with Trump, and I'm just talking about these people because they're polarizing people. I'm on their side no matter what. Whatever they do, I'm for. And the other side, I'm not for. No matter what, I'm not for these people. No matter what, I'm for these people. I'm this, I'm that. Because we have deemed and we have said that we need a hero. So in that, when we